Amazing discoveries the news won't report. With war, politics, celebrity sex tapes, and sports taking up the majority of most news bulletins, it's no surprise that many major scientific developments end up ignored by the mainstream media. So in this video, we're going to cover a few recent developments you may have missed. And in doing so, we'll shift from cryosleep to murdersleep via the sixth moon of Saturn. Buckle up, folks. It's gonna be a weird and wild ride as we explore some amazing discoveries the news won't report. Remember how Chris Pratt woke up Jennifer Lawrence from cryosleep in the movie Passengers because he was bored and horny? Well, guess what? You could soon be that awful a person too, as NASA's investment in cryosleep technology seems to have finally paid off. In 2016, SpaceWorks Enterprises received $500,000 in funding to investigate how to put space travelers into an extended period of hibernation. A one-way trip to Mars takes around 300 days, and as well as the psychological strain such a long, isolated journey may impart on the crew, there is also the problem of hauling enough supplies to keep everyone fed, watered, and entertained over a year in space. Such problems can be avoided if the crew are placed in stasis, but unlike what you've seen in the movies, the designs proposed by SpaceWorks do not involve astronauts napping in their own individual chambers. Instead, groups of people will all sleep in one shared pod, with a controlled climate lowering their individual temperatures to 32 degrees Celsius. That may sound rather warm, but the human body typically operates at 37 degrees, and mild hypothermia can set in at 35. This is precisely what the SpaceWorks team are hoping to achieve. After the necessary sedatives have been applied, inducing a state of mild hypothermia would slow down the astronauts' metabolic rate and prevent them from being damaged by a lack of oxygen. The crew would remain in a state known as torpor for up to 2 weeks or more, and although this condition doesn't come as naturally to humans as it does to other creatures such as hibernating bears, it is something we've induced many times before in trauma patients or heart attack victims. However, when a patient is placed into artificial torpor in the hospital, they are typically taken out after 24 to 72 hours. In space, this period would need to be extended, with cycles of 1 to 2 weeks, broken up by 2 to 3 days of activity. Private funding is now needed to help realize this technology and avoid the prospect of us having to send bears into space. But SpaceWorks chief John Bradford has been quoted as saying that cryosleep facilities will be in place, ready for a potential Mars mission in the early 2030s. But what if someone comes out of stasis and they've accidentally broken their pelvis or their lung has fallen out? Hey, it could happen. You don't know what space is like. Some people are angry sleepers, and that's a theme we're going to revisit later in this video. But over a long enough timeline, there are many injuries and illnesses which can affect a group of isolated humans. So how would we treat those people when the nearest hospital is many years away? This is the question posed by Dr. Sukhmeet Panesar and the appropriately named Professor Kumars Ashkan. Their paper, Surgery in Space, has explored the potential pitfalls of off-Earth medical treatment. And based on their findings, it seems things may just get a little bit messy up there. How messy, you ask? Well, one quote which sums this up nicely came in a section titled Open Surgery, where the authors oh so casually mentioned that the tendency of organs to eviscerate has also been reported. So, how do you cut someone open in a weightless environment without their blood and guts floating away? It's one thing to have ruffled chips floating about the place, Homer Simpson style. But imagine being inside a gravity-free operating theater. Scalpels, pus, miscellaneous organs. How do you keep these in check and avoid the spaceship turning into a complete horror show? Experimental surgery has been performed within microgravity on several occasions before, and we've learned it makes sense to have both patient and surgeon fixed in position like they're on a roller coaster. Furthermore, the procedure should take place within a sealed chamber called a trauma pod, which also sounds like something you'd find at a theme park now that I think about it. In addition to the trouble posed by a lack of gravity, Dr. Panesar and Professor Ashkan's paper also notes how bone atrophy, radiation exposure, cardiovascular changes, and fluid redistribution will produce a range of new space-specific ailments which will need to be treated too. So, not only will space surgery itself prove challenging, but we'll also have a bunch of never-before-seen injuries and illnesses to contend with. They make it look so easy in the movies. So, with the exception of Mars, it may be best to continue sending unmanned spacecraft to explore the far reaches of the cosmos. This is what we've just done with Enceladus, the sixth largest and most delicious-sounding moon of Saturn. And from what we've seen so far, it appears this place may be a prime candidate for the harboring of life. Enceladus is an icy world with a massive liquid ocean lurking beneath its solid surface and a water-filled, porous core at the center. Occasionally, high-powered thermal vents will shoot through the crust, sending material from the core and ocean out into space in the form of water vapor and ice grains. The Cassini spacecraft analyzed the composition of this material, and data indicates the presence of large, complex organic molecules which originated from beneath the surface of Enceladus. As explained in the journal Nature, such large molecules can be indicative of complex chemical processes caused by the primordial material found in meteorites, or they can come from hydrothermal activity which takes place within the core of the moon. Study co-leader Frank Postberg was quoted as saying he believes it is most likely the latter, but the paper also notes that such molecules can be created by life forms too. So, is Enceladus alive? Maybe. The existence of these complex molecules indicates this icy moon at least possesses a life-suitable environment. And hydrothermal vents have also been proposed as a potential genesis site on our planet too. Further investigation of Enceladus may therefore be even more profoundly important than we presently know, as this Saturnian satellite could help to explain the origin of all life here on planet Earth. But before we even think about trying to learn where we came from, might we first need to reconnect with our own humanity to see where we're heading? Human beings are capable of inflicting terrible atrocities on one another, and one thing which makes this easier is our apparent ability to dehumanize our opponents. When someone is made out to be less than human, it is far easier to assault, objectify, oppress, and exterminate them. And dehumanizing language is often used by politicians across the political spectrum in order to impress their point upon the public. Migrants are often described as if they were a swarm of insects. Welfare claimants are parasites. People whose views don't match your own are called scum. Dehumanization occurs on a daily basis, and for a long time, psychologists believed it merely represented a severe form of hatred or dislike. However, a recent study published in the Journal of Experimental Psychology indicates differently. Researchers asked a number of participants how they felt about different groups of people and animals, including rats, Europeans, Muslims, surgeons, white Americans, Roma, and puppies. That's a pretty diverse group you got right there. The subjects were told to respond on a scale going from cold to warm while hooked up to a brain scanner. And they were also asked to place each group in a position on the Ascent of Man image, which illustrates the various stages of evolution. The results from the study showed that those who dehumanized certain groups processed their opinions in a different part of the brain to the area which processes dislike. Individuals who hold the view that certain humans are lesser beings do not do so just because they hate them. They have a fundamentally altered perception of who and what these people are. Whether you like them may not even come into consideration at all, as the research also seems to indicate that it's possible to dehumanize someone whom you hold in a positive regard. To be fair, I can identify with that. My buddy's sister is an absolute tool, and not even a good tool. Like a hammer made of mince or something. You know, I dream about murdering her almost every night, and you know why I do that? It's because I'm creative. And sure, maybe a little unhinged too. That's right. A study published in the journal Dreaming by Jonas Mathis of the Institute of Experimental Psychology has investigated how often people dream of performing violent acts against others. I don't know what inspired Mr. Mathis to investigate this, But I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's having some trouble getting to sleep because he's a total night murderer. But if he is, Mathis's own research seems to indicate that this makes him rather creative. 2 groups of people were first analyzed for aggressive traits using a psychology test, and 1 group was also tested for creativity and neuroticism. Both groups were then asked to keep a dream log for 28 days to record their activities in slumberland. When the results were analyzed, the first group reported that between 18% and 28% of all their dreams involved attacking someone physically or verbally. Most of the acts which occurred were deliberate, but the researchers noted that most people reported them as necessary for self-defense. When combined with the personality surveys, it was found that people who regularly had violent dreams possessed higher levels of neuroticism and aggression than those who did not. And they also encountered real-world violence more often too. But the most interesting link was between creatives and angry dreamers, as they too showed a positive correlation. It is theorized that having a rich imagination causes you to dwell on certain events more. This leads to an overanalysis of emotions, which in turn creates feelings of anger and neurosis. And such states seemingly carry over into the dream world, manifesting themselves as displays of unconscious violence. Maybe this is why my girlfriend likes to strangle me in my sleep. Or perhaps she's just having trouble sleeping herself. Because did you know there's a certain color which can cause narcolepsy? It's true. And we're going to somehow link this to exoplanets, our universe's missing matter, and a bizarre correlation between the use of opioids and your choice of political candidate in our bonus video. More amazing discoveries the news won't report, which you can watch over at patreon.com/strangemysteries now. For a $2 monthly pledge, you'll gain access to this and over 100 more bonus videos. And you'll also become part of the Strange Mysteries community, where we interact with fans to discuss the topics we want to make and you want to see. Your contributions have a huge impact on our ability to produce mind-bending videos which explore fascinating topics in more depth than ever before. And nowhere is this more evident than in our premium videos, exclusive to our $20 Patreons, where we consult with the scientific community to investigate cutting-edge research before the mainstream media catches on. Here's a trailer for our latest premium video entitled
Chemicals of Reality. Reality, consciousness, brains. What else is there? Ask yourself that question. Perhaps that's all there really is, but perhaps everything else is found within a place where these ideas, these things, overlap. Some thing, some place that is undefinable. To many people, altering certain chemicals in their brains produces what they would simply call hallucinations. In fact, what we're going to discuss specifically used to be called the businessman's trip, as one could enjoy it. Come down and put your pants back on in the time it takes to eat lunch. It wasn't taken seriously, well, unless of course you started digging. And some people, including us, did. Already though, to many people, this chemical is special amongst others. Very special. To them, it represents something more meaningful and incredible, as if it's the gateway to the next level of consciousness. The ticket to a higher reality barely explored by most humans. It is the entry point to a new reality, visited by only a select few, whose minds have become enlightened through the use of this exotic substance. For this reason, it's commonly referred to as the spirit molecule. But is its reputation as a mystical mind opener deserved? Or is it, and everything it represents, just a load of bullshit? We look at, investigate, and dive deeply into nearly all available research regarding this question, from nearly every angle feasible. And in the course of doing so, stumble upon unexplainable patterns, correlations, and neurological evidence for a reality existing beyond this one. Watch this hour-long Strange Mysteries premium video, Chemicals of Reality, as well as many more to come by becoming an elite premium member of our Patreon at patreon.com/strangemysteries.